Many years ago, in a city whose name and traces have been erased from the pages of time, there lived a humble shopkeeper who earned his daily bread through hard work. He tried his best to provide a decent living for his children. Over many years, he toiled hard and sweat from his brow. But despite all his efforts, he had only a small shop and no savings. He barely managed to earn his livelihood through aloe vera gel. Though he had no savings, Allah had blessed him to live his life without being dependent on anyone, enduring both good and bad times. He was grateful to Allah for being better than those who, like a gust of wind, become owners of wealth through illicit means. One day, as the shopkeeper was opening his shop saying Bismillah, he saw an old friend who had come to visit him. The friend inquired about his well-being and his family's condition. The shopkeeper replied that Allah was blessing him with a modest livelihood, and the rough times were manageable. The friend then took out a purse from under his shawl and placed it before the shopkeeper, saying, "My friend, I plan to travel. I am leaving 1,000 rupees in this purse with you as a trust until my return. I hope you will keep it safe. If you face any difficulty, I will leave it with another friend. However, finding an honest and generous person like you in this city is difficult." The shopkeeper assured his friend that there was no such concern. He asked the friend to leave the purse with him and depart on his journey. The friend handed over the purse to the shopkeeper, said goodbye, and left. The shopkeeper also bid him farewell with prayers and got busy with his work. After a while, a few young men dressed in very poor clothes arrived at the shop. They had a demeanor of arrogance and haughtiness. They stood in front of the shop and dismounted from their horses, engaging in conversation with the shopkeeper and laughing. They requested to see some fine fabric. The shopkeeper showed them a piece of silk fabric that he had in a corner of his shop. They were so pleased with it that they could hardly contain their joy. One of the young men said, "Perhaps you don't know that this fabric is very valuable. Therefore, I want to know where you got it from. We have traveled all over this city, but have not seen such fabric anywhere. We came to your shop in search of it." The shopkeeper explained that this fabric was from an old stock that he couldn't sell as his customers didn't have the means to buy it. The young men took the fabric, left without saying a word, and the shopkeeper ran after them, calling out, "What about the price of this fabric?" One of the young men, after instructing his companions, said, "Come to the royal palace tomorrow. We are courtiers of the king. You can get the price from us there." The shopkeeper was astonished and worried, knowing well that it was difficult to get money from such people. The day passed, and the shopkeeper went to the palace on a donkey, hoping to receive the payment for the fabric. However, he was unaware of the real situation and thought he would get the payment soon. When he reached the palace, he saw soldiers and guards everywhere, who were on the lookout for the young men who had bought the fabric. When the guards heard the shopkeeper's story, they told him that he would get his answer the next day. The shopkeeper hoped to become wealthy quickly, but upon seeing the situation, he felt ashamed and went back. When he came back a week later, he was told to return after another week, and this continued for several weeks. Finally, one day, he was told by a guard that he should forget about the money and leave. The shopkeeper, feeling hopeless and defeated, realized that he couldn't get the payment and decided to return home. When he reached home, his children and family were worried and asked about the trouble he had faced. He recounted the entire story and said that despite the hardships, he had to face the king's courtiers and tried his best. He would have remained distressed if he hadn't done so. The shopkeeper's body was bruised from the beatings he received. He stayed home for recovery and eventually decided to return to work. One day, he found himself in front of a mill and approached an old friend of his father, who agreed to give him work. He worked at the mill doing hard labor to earn a living. The shopkeeper, determined to repay his debt to his friend, worked diligently and eventually his fortune changed. He was able to repay his debts and get back on his feet. Despite the struggles and hardships, he remained honest and never betrayed his friend's trust.